So ladies, gentlemen of the DC Universe, welcome to a brand new DCU News Roundup video. And we've got, almost too much to talk about in today's video, so you guys know these videos are long, but my goodness, is this one going to break a record? Gunn, for some reason, seems to go ham on Threads this time. We're going to do the typical James Gunn segment in this video. There's a lot to go over there, but there's leaks, there's DCU leaks. Gunn has acknowledged those as well. There's all kinds of little tidbits, all juicy, all good. Stick around for the whole of this video if you want to. I do recommend that. There are timestamps, but if you want to stay extra up to date, then, you know, let's go through this together. And also, like this video. I'd really appreciate that. So, first of all, something that I haven't spoken about yet is that we have this tweet here from Hope Sloop. She's a reporter, and she said that exclusive Nathan Fillion just confirmed to me that Superman Legacy has a table read in Atlanta next week and that he has fittings soon. Now, Gunn got wind of this on Threads, of which we're going to go over later, but you're probably seeing that part on screen right now where somebody brought it to his attention and he's like, oh, Nathan. So, yeah, like, he wasn't really supposed to let that out there. It's not like a huge deal, but it can mean a few things, of which I want to talk about right away. So, they're having a table read. To imagine that is just fantastic. I mean, this is where I think a lot of us hardcore fans are like, oh my god, to be a fly on that wall. But it's also got some people thinking, okay, but wait, if they're all meant to maybe be there, all the cast members for a table read, why haven't we heard about Papa or Mama Kent right now? As in Jonathan and Martha Kent. So the thing about table reads, I guess you could argue that you can have one even if, I guess maybe, let's just say someone isn't available, but maybe you could argue that some people might not have been cast, but they're in the process of doing that, and they're just kind of, dotting their I's and crossing their T's, but they can't really make it, so you might have another actor or somebody else doing their role or the narration or something like that. That's not too uncommon, but it has got people wondering about that, and it's also just kind of checked me back into it. It's like, oh yeah, what about Jonathan and Martha Kent? So I guess there's a couple of possibilities here as to why we haven't heard about it. It could be cast under the radar. So Jonathan and Martha Kent could have been already cast, but I struggle to believe that because I feel like, I could be wrong here, but I feel like a major trade would have got wind of that already. Now, quick Boba from the future update. As of when editing this video, he was asked about, will you announce the full Legacy cast the day of the table read the same way you did the Suicide Squad? And Gunn replied, I don't believe there is any cast at the table read who hasn't been announced. And goes on to say, no, this doesn't mean that there aren't other characters in the film that haven't been announced. Of course, there are more characters. But yes, I think all of the actors that will be at the relatively intimate table read are actors who have been announced, which makes sense. Again, as I said, it could be that they're still in the process of casting Jonathan and Martha Kent and Perry White and other actors that we have heard of before who could be in Superman Legacy. I mean, of course, you're going to get Perry White there. You're going to get at least one of the Kents. It's just we haven't heard of them yet. So maybe they just haven't been announced yet. Maybe they have already been cast. Maybe they haven't been cast, but it's just they only need certain people at this table read. Also, of course, Nathan Fillion is undergoing fittings very soon. It seems that some have had fittings more so than others. For example, in a couple of seconds, we're going to be talking about another Superman Legacy cast member who has acknowledged that they have worn their helmet, basically, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. So I just want to, somebody out there want to leak the David Corn Sweat Superman picture? Hit me up. I'll take the copyright strike. I'll do it. I'll take one for the team. But also, one thing I'm really hoping, if anything's going to come out of this table read publicly, James Gunn, please post a picture of everyone together, whether they're sat around the table or just, got their arms around each other. That would be awesome to see. Now, up next, we've had Frank Grillo talk quite a bit about Rick Flag Sr., and he said a few things in a couple of different interviews, one with Movie Phone and one with Screen Rant. So what he says here is, yes, I recorded with David Harbour, and I may have recorded with Maria Bakalova, but it's great. I love James Gunn and Peter Safran and what they're doing with DC and for the DCU. And these characters are living in all their movies. I'm going to be around for a while, and I wish I could tell you what I have coming up with them, but I can't. I was just with the Russo brothers, Kevin Feige and Lou D'Esposito. I probably butchered that name. And it's kind of like, I miss those guys, but you blew it. Now we're going over here. Creature Commandos roles, animated roles, of course, can go over to live action. Think about Anya Chalotra playing Cersei. I expect to see her maybe even as Wonder Woman's villain in whatever we see with Wonder Woman in live action. David Harbour, we're probably going to see his character in live action at some point. So Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. will be echoing throughout the DCU. He's been assured by Gunn that you're going to pop up in live action. You know, you're going to be not just a one and done in Creature Commandos. And that's not mega surprising, but just because we do know that, you know, animated will cross over with live action and vice versa. It's going to be so intriguing to see how we see these characters in the future DCU projects. Now, with Screen Rant, Frank Grillo gives us a little bit more here. So he says, Senior is just that. He is senior, so there's a gravitas to him, I think, that Junior didn't have yet. He's in control. He's the boss. It's funny because when I'm around older guys who now have to be old because I'm old, I love listening to them because there's an I don't give a shit attitude about the rest of the world. And I think because this is a hard R, Creature Commandos is a hard R. It's fun. And by the way, I love to hear that. When we were doing it, I think one day it was me and David Harbour recording. I was on the ground. I had to stop in the recording studio. I had to go on the ground and laugh. That's how funny and filthy it is. It's amazing. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I think that it's what's different is this guy's the boss and he's grizzled, white on the sides and white in the beard. I'm leaning into all that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Creature Commandos. It's going to be coming out, as Frank Grillo also said, right at the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. So probably, yeah, around September time. Let me know how excited you are, or maybe you're not so excited, but you can bet your ass we're going to be doing some reviews on this channel. And I can't wait to see, even in the animated format, what kind of teasers and exposition they set up for the DCU. I know that's mainly going to be reserved for, you know, our first peek with Superman Legacy, properly in a live-action sense, but we're probably going to get a lot more than what people are expecting. Possibly even more in a weird way, because there's so much you can do with animation in Creature Commandos when it comes to getting a peek at all of this lore with the DCU. Now, as for another cast member within the DCU, this time specifically Superman Legacy, we have a few quotes from Isabella Merced, given the whole Madame Web thing that's going on at the minute, and my God, as I'm recording this, let's just say some scores have dropped, and oh, Sony. First of all, from the Hollywood Reporter here, a little bit of a preview of Hawkgirl. I was directed by Gunn during the screen test for Superman Legacy because I auditioned for this. I got to do the screen test with my other castmates, and that was really cool. It felt very professional. It was almost like a legitimate shooting day. So I've already learned so much about his process, and this man has the best of the best working for him. So that's really, really awesome, just in terms of imagining her screen testing with other castmates of Superman Legacy. As we know, quite a few of them are in Atlantis, so it's not really surprising. It's kind of what I said about Millie Alcock's Supergirl audition. Some people weren't sure with my idea here. I said maybe they could have pulled in David Corenswet since he's local. If you can do it, you know, why not? Another cool thing that I like here is hearing about the serious attitude towards making this DCU. So initially she says this man has the best of the best working for him. Now in this Deadline interview, she says James Gunn is one of those guys that like has a group of people around him at all times taking care of his movies, and they're just the best of the best. They are so good at what they do, and you trust them so much that the communication is uncanny. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm happy that he trusts me. It's interesting that Isabella Merced's coming out of this in most of her interviews, at least as of right now when recording this, and she's really just kind of not really talking so much about Hawkgirl, and we'll get to that in a second. She does tease Hawkgirl, but it's more kind of bigging up like how serious this production is for Superman Legacy, the approach to James Gunn, or James Gunn's approach rather, how many people he has around him, how the communication is uncanny, everyone is the best of the best. It's like, it just seems like she's more awestruck by this is big. Like, this isn't just, okay, you know, I've been a part of Madame Web, you know, that was a comic book movie, you know, but this is like an enterprise that we're entering. I mean, I know a lot of people, and there's a lot of haters out there who are like, the DCU's gonna be rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I can't prove otherwise, but what I have always said is that every nugget of information from Gunn's drop on 31st of January 2023 to podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, he is saying everything, and everything, or should I say, is being curated to a T. Yeah, I like hearing this, as well as what we're about to read out next. And that is when Isabella Merced talked about how she's already done all of her fittings. This is coming from Variety here, for Hawkgirl, and she's even tried on her signature helmet. She says, the paint job is impeccable. I hope they finalized it. I don't know. You never know with James Gunn. He could always change his mind last minute, and we would respect him for that. So she was talking about in the video version of this interview, yeah, she's tried it on. She's tried on the helmet. She's really like ecstatic about when she says the paint job is impeccable. So this is what I meant earlier with how Nathan Fillion is probably roundabout right now going through his costume fittings, but Isabella Merced has already done that for Hawkgirl. So yeah, they really are working through everybody, because I mean, after all, they are about to start shooting in just a few weeks' time, which is insane. So I really do hope in the next couple of months we get a peek at one or two of these suits. All right, so up next we have some DCU leaks to go through here. Now, when I say leaks, don't freak out. I think this is safe to go into. It's not kind of like plot spoilers for Superman Legacy. It's more just they are pretty sure that they know a couple of DCU projects that are to be announced. So if you're okay with knowing that, continue watching. If you're not, then feel free to go to the next timestamp. Now, unfortunately, as they say here on their Twitter page, thank you all for a fun run. These were our final scoops as our source has decided to step away. Now, if you didn't know already, essentially they had a series on their Reddit. This was once formerly DCEU Leaks. I'm sure many of you have heard about that over the years and years and years. And now DCU Leaks, they had a series in where they would post verified leaks from this trusted and vetted source, I assume. And then, of course, they would have unverified leaks that I guess people who are unverified would have come to them with. But they apparently had their own source of whom, well, I can even attest to in the past that they have got some things right, of which have later been confirmed to be true in the DCU of when they said it originally months and months and months and months and months before that. So it is very intriguing, and apparently they have one final post here. So let's go through that. Also, this got brought to James Gunn's attention, of which we'll go through in just a second. So, verified number 1, Teen Titans. A Teen Titans film is in development at DC Studios. Oh man, I just got chills right then. I mean, I at the idea of it, before anyone gets carried away saying, Boba, do you just believe leaks outright? I mean, no. But I have said time and time and time again, I do think something Titans is going to happen. Now, do I believe that it would be in development right now? I mean, that's possible. What I'm more intrigued by with this is the word Teen Titans, because whenever I picture Titans in the DCU, this is kind of what I went over in my live stream the other day. Obviously, Teen Titans surrounds them being younger. And what I kind of had in my head, I felt like after Brave and the Bold, they could bleed off into a Titans direction through obviously seeing Dick Grayson in Batman, the Brave and the Bold, whether he's in Nightwing mode. Now, yes, I do know in the comic books, Nightwing can, or Dick Grayson can become Nightwing as young as like, what, 18, 19 years old? So I guess what I can say here is that even with this Teen Titans, you could have it set in present day. I think this is what conversation I should have prefaced it with is about. Is this a present day thing or a prequel kind of thing? Because people are saying, well, maybe Teen Titans, the movie, is going to be a flashback thing, but I don't know about that, to be honest, because a lot of people are talking about Damian Wayne, and it's just like, if Damian Wayne's going to be in the Teen Titans, I mean, that would be present day. So trying to get back on track here, if Nightwing truly is around 18, 19 in the DCU, I mean, he is still 19 or 18, so he could still be the leader of the Teen Titans, even if some of the members like Raven to whoever is, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years old. Do you know what I mean? So I would prefer a present day Titans series, whether it's Teen Titans or Titans. Now, I'm all for prequel series in the future being greenlit. I've talked a lot about that and how I think there's a golden opportunity to mine there with World War II, the JSA, just getting a peek of the DCU in the past. Like, what were heroes like? You've seen Superman Legacy, but what were the heroes who inspired the heroes of present-day DCU that you've been seeing? Now, meet the JSA 70, 80 plus years into the past, right? So I'm all for that, but I do think that Teen Titans should be kind of, not teased like crazy, but somewhat built off of the Brave and the Bold when we get introduced to the Bat family. Nightwing could be young and the leader. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of that. Again, I know plenty of people want the Teen Titans version rather than a Titans version, and where the Titans are all a bit older, maybe in their 20s. So, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I always don't know how to pronounce. Is it Ruth or Ruthie? Ruth? I don't know. Will be an open casting with an age range of 15 to 18 years old. Makes sense. I don't really have much more to say about it than that. She is one of the key characters in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, if you didn't know already. If you don't know, go check it out. Go check it out. Or I might do a breakdown on the channel sometime. I think I should have done that already. I keep talking about that. All right, so up next, Plastic Man. This has been a rumor for a while, except that they're now saying that Darren Aronofsky is in talks to direct. So the whole Plastic Man idea being somewhat independent makes sense to me, because that's kind of what I've always thought. Because whenever people have talked about the Terrifics, I've said, okay, I get how maybe I've Mr. Terrific and you have Metamorpho and Superman Legacy, but I feel like there could be a separate project which brings Plastic Man into the DCU and then thus brings the Terrifics together, maybe. Now, as for Darren Aronofsky, I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, I think the most recent movie he directed was The Whale with Brendan Fraser, but I can't really picture like Plastic Man right now. I don't really have too much of an opinion, if I'm being very candid here, about the scoop with regards to the director. I'm actually more interested in just the idea of a Plastic Man movie. But the last thing they have to say, Sergeant Rock. Okay, talking about prequel series. So a Sergeant Rock film is in development at DC Studios. Now, initially, my first reaction is thinking about what some of you guys might think. And I know some of the people out there will just be like, oh my god, the DCU, they need to get bigger characters, not like characters like this. I get what people are saying. They're probably worried that, has anyone heard about this? Would the general audience care about this? Why aren't they getting like a Trinity movie, a Justice League movie off the floor first? I get what people mean by that. As per what James Gunn has said before, is that he wants to turn characters like this into the diamond characters that you love as much as Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Now, that is a Herculean feat to accomplish, and I don't know if it will ever be quite like that, but obviously the best examples are, look at how much he made you, or maybe not you, but some of you care about Peacemaker, or the Guardians of the Galaxy, etc., etc. Rocket Raccoon, do you know what I mean? People love these characters now. So, if written and done incredibly, these characters like Sergeant Rock could be incredibly popular. Now, Sergeant Rock I say prequel because will this be a prequel series? Because, I mean, Easy Company, World War II. Could this even open up exposition to things like the Justice Society? I mean, this is what I want. I think there is such a gold mine for that period of time in the DCU. I think if this is in early development at DC Studios, as they're saying here, that's fine, because it doesn't mean it's going to be shot in the next year or two. Not at all. It could be, in development for several years from now. Even if it's not, like 4 years from now, 3 years from now, it's set in it. I mean, it might not be, because, for example, Creature Commandos was set back in those times as well, but it's now a modern day adaptation. So I guess you could say Sergeant Rock could be the same. But I do think, going back to what I was saying, there's a gold mine of exploring the past of the DCU. Now, we're getting that with Paradise Lost, but I want to explore it as to how I said, with after a few years of the DCU, you see Superman, other heroes as well, Batman, Mr. Terrific, and everything like that. How about taking a look into the past, where there's Starman, Hourman, Wildcat, maybe a Dr. Fate, maybe a Flash? That would be incredible. And, considering Sergeant Rock is surrounding this badass character during those days in the war, I feel like they could do all kinds of things with that, like truly. But again, is this real or not? We don't know. But this now springboards me into the James Gunn thread section of this video. The first thing I need to talk about with screenshot number 1 is him being asked about, hey, what do you think about these? And I feel like, let me just read it out first. At least one of these things is not true. Have fun guessing, laughing face, the little merman, vigilante emoji and whatnot. So I think people are taking this a little bit out of context. At least that's my interpretation. And he capitalizes at least one of those things is not true. Have fun guessing. And he's kind of taking the piss, in my opinion, because he's saying at least one, meaning that it's more than one, potentially. And with there being 4 leaks, the Teen Titans one, the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow one, the Plastic Man, and the Sergeant Rock one, what if 3 of them isn't true? Because he's saying at least, capitalized, one of these is not true. The most believable one is the Supergirl open casting with the age range of 15 to 18 years old. So that means the Teen Titans one could be false, the Plastic Man one could be false, the Sergeant Rock one could be false. So he knows what he's doing here. But also, he could be phrasing it in this way, joking about it this way, because what if 1 or 2 of them is indeed true? But yeah, at least one of those things is not true, maybe 1 or 2. I know, I'm just going to keep going around in circles here. I mean, I don't think it's too deep, but I suppose maybe at the same time it can be, because without him giving us a straight answer, does that mean the Teen Titans one could be true? Does that mean the plastic one could be true? What about Sergeant Rock? All right, so up next, we have this user saying, hey, James Gunn, how often will you and Peter personally cast someone for a role in the DCU installment without any input from a director or creator? Will the eventual director of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow have to agree to Millie Alcock's casting as Supergirl in order to get the job? I mean, I guess they would have to, wouldn't they? I mean, she's already cast. Either way, James Gunn says, well, you're assuming only Peter and I cast Millie. It wasn't only us. And that the first thing she's appearing in is Woman of Tomorrow. But yes, anyone who directs a DC property with pre-established characters will be agreeing to use the actors already cast. Of course they would. If somebody makes a Jimmy Olsen movie, for example, they'd agree to Skyler even though he's in Superman first. Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. Now, when he says it wasn't only him and Peter who cast Millie Alcock, I think he more means there's the whole DCU architectural team there, so I'm sure he also means Tom King, who wrote Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. James Gunn has already gone on about how he's very instrumental to this film. I mean, after all, they're adapting it based off of his comic book there. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And it's funny how he mentions, and that the first thing she's appearing in is Woman of Tomorrow. Well, that's because I think we can all bet some money on her appearing in Superman Legacy, even though he keeps saying, I never said that. And that's only like the truth. Doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means that he has actually never publicly said that. But we've been over that enough before. Now, what I really liked over the weekend is that James Gunn posted to Thread saying, who is your favorite lesser-known DC Comics superhero? Everyone was replying here, and he was replying to practically everyone. So I've got a few replies. I don't know how many I'm going to get through just because this video is going on for a hot minute already. But it's quite funny. I replied a couple of times, and one of the ones I replied with was the 7 Soldiers of Victory. I was like, hey, let's get these Chads on screen. Now, that photograph that you just saw on screen was probably the one from Stargirl, and he liked my Thread reply. Now, again, that doesn't really mean anything. I thought it would just be funny to chuck that in there because I don't think you're going to get, I mean, who knows? I could be wrong, but the 7 Soldiers of Victory, you have Green Arrow in there, you have Shining Knight, who's literally a knight from Arthurian, Camelot times, and it's just, I don't know if we would see that, but maybe you could do like a modern-ish take on that, and where there's this guy who's been like living that long, right? And he was one of the knights of the Round Table. But either way, what are the other things that James Gunn not only liked, but actually replied to? First up, he talks about Constantine, because this user says, hey, what about Constantine? And yeah, I guess in the grand scheme of things, some of you might instantly be like, oh, I know who Constantine is. We have to imagine, lesser popular could mean that of the general public. They might think of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So technically, Constantine could count, maybe. And Gunn says here, read every issue of the original Hellblazer run pretty much as it first came out. He says, all-time classic series, looked forward to each story. Swamp Thing, the more run was life-altering. Please, 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 can we have John Constantine in the DCU? I really hope so. Now, I'm reading this out just because it is an acknowledgement of Constantine. You can clearly tell he's quite a fan of Constantine. Now, this doesn't mean 1 + 1 = 2 here, as in John Constantine will be in the DCU in the next few years, but I am hopeful because if there's one thing I know is that James Gunn is quite a big fan of a particular set of characters, of which I'm also quite a big fan of, and you'd have to think that he will insert them at some point. And then you have the question, somebody says, oh, 1000% the question, I love detective stories, and hope at some point he comes to life in the DCU. Gunn says, same. I mean, he hopes, and he has teased quite... by the way, when he says that, I do want to get into the conspiracy territory of just because he's replying same, doesn't already mean that just because he hopes the same, that he's not already planning something, for the Question, because I think the Question is one of the more likely characters he might actually have plans for. He says, I come to love so many Charlton characters separately, not even knowing that they were Charlton. It's the Mask for me. So all I can say is, Gunn, same. I hope that he joins the DCU. Now, Home of DCU asks, I love the Question, but my favorite is Adam Strange. I've written so many possible stories that could be told with him, and he means a great deal to me. And this is where James Gunn says, probably my very favorite newish comic series was this dark twist on Adam Strange by Tom King. Blew my mind. Also, one of my favorite versions of another favorite, Mr. Terrific, which is where we have this user saying, did you recommend this to Eddie Gathegi? That run instantly made me very interested on a character I had never been interested in before, Mr. Terrific. And James Gunn says, yes, first thing I told him about. So literally the first thing that James Gunn told Eddie Gathegi with regards to Mr. Terrific was Tom King's Strange Adventures. Now, Tom King's Strange Adventures is a Black Label Elseworlds story. I don't think it's canon or anything like that, and that's probably mainly because of the dark twist, if you will. It is quite intriguing. It's a weird thing because some people say that it completely I think some people really don't like it because they claim that it character assassinates. Some people just say I think because of the dark twist, the kind of very controversial thing that happens with Adam Strange, it kind of alienates. And I do get it. I kind of have a love kind of dislike thing with it because I really do love Elseworld stories. I kind of acknowledge how you can do pretty divisive things with characters in an Elseworld story. Now, this one gets quite political with the way it tackles Adam Strange's story, his past, and how that ties up in what's happening in present day. Mr. Terrific looks in on this kind of murder mystery kind of thing that happens. But I understand why, I don't want to give away the spoilers, by the way, just in case you do plan on reading it, but I understand why he basically gave that to Eddie Gathegi to read for Mr. Terrific, and that's because Mr. Terrific is really good in that story. But let me know if you've read that and what you think. Let me know if you know what I mean. It's kind of a weird thing. I like it, but I also kind of get why people have an issue with it. Now, this user here says, more mainstream love for this dynamic duo would be awesome. Black Canary and the Green Arrow. And this is what I mean by James Gunn and why I have faith in hopefully something Green Arrow happening at some point. So he says, love them both. I dressed up as Green Arrow in second grade with my own little paper hat. He was also my favorite Mego action figure. So yeah, I mean, he said many things with regards to Green Arrow as to why I think, if he loves Green Arrow that much, hopefully he's going to finally bring... And I agree with the original post. Yes, we've had Arrow on the CW, but let's just say that never got made. And even though it was made, we can't ignore that. It still wasn't Oliver Queen, as maybe many of you might disagree with me, but I think we can all agree to some extent it wasn't a proper adaptation, which is why there's memes about CW Batman. But other than that, there wouldn't really be all much Green Arrow stuff out there other than maybe video game stuff and of course comic books. But yeah, I need Oliver Queen on the big screen. Now, have you ever wondered James Gunn's favorite Titans member? Because, as this user says, there have been too many members of the Teen Titans / Titans. Some of them are fan favorites, others not well known, and others crappy. But which Titan do you love the most? Me, Cyborg, Starfire, Raven, Wally West, and Donna Troy. And Gunn says, hard to say, but probably Raven. Does this mean something or doesn't it? I mean, ultimately, no. No, it doesn't. But it's just something to bookmark when it comes to the DCU, as of when or if we will see the Titans, which I think we will, and what that will mean Monday. As we know, the literal head of DC Studios' favorite Titan is Raven. But let me know your favorite Titan down in the comments. Another user here says Dr. Fate and Wildcat, and Gunn says, honestly, one of my very favorite. Well, you know what, Gunn? Take up my pitch for the JSA prequel project and we'll get talking. And by the way, unpopular opinion, but I think Alan Ritchson would make a much better Wildcat than he would Batman. Oh god, I'm going to get dislikes now, aren't I? But no, seriously, I can actually imagine that a lot more. But we're going to talk about those Batman fan casts another time. Now, this user here says, have you ever considered adding your own lore to the DCU? And he says, that always happens when you make films. That will be happening. If he puts his footprint, his stamp on Superman Legacy and constructs this story, he needs to bring in the lore from the comics, but innovated with his own interpretation. I think what you need need to do ultimately is not deviate. As I always say, innovate, don't deviate. Be faithful to the comics, but adaptations don't copy and paste. So he will be also, you know, interpreting it, but maybe adding like one or two things that kind of maybe aids it, makes it cooler in this fresh take, potentially. All kinds of things like that. I can imagine people twisting this potentially. I know I'm always like almost imagining a negative response, but I think it's because I see it a lot of the time on my channel from some people who are really against the DCU. But you can imagine some people being like, no, why would you add your own lore? You adapt straight one for one to the comics. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like, you know, you do also add a little bit of your own stuff there. And I'm actually really intrigued to see what Gunn adds lore-wise to the DCU, since he is also very knowledgeable to that of the comic books on a lot of these characters, like insanely so, as I said earlier, to the point of where I don't think people like realize or give enough credit to how much he loves and respects the DC characters. Yet at the same time, he's got to also add some new twists and potentially new lore, which could maybe turn out to be a fan favorite of whatever he adds. I did originally have so much more screenshots here to read out, but unfortunately, this video is getting way too long. So what I'm going to do is read out some of the other stuff maybe in a bonus video in the next news roundup. I don't know, but I'm going to leave this video here. So it has been a fun one again. Let me know your thoughts on every single story that we talked about today down in the comments below. I read every single comment, so make sure you leave one. I interact where I can and reply to those when I can. But yeah, just leave this video a like, consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date with more DC Nerd Out discussions and news updates and breakdowns just like this. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.